All right. If you have a moment, if you feel comfortable and you're in a good place, go ahead and join us with your video so that we can see your lovely faces. If you don't feel comfortable, we understand that as well. Feel free to put your name and whatever pronouns you'd like to be used, because we are going to try to make this as interactive as possible, given the box nature of Zoom, but we do want to see your faces if we can. So welcome. I'm going to kick us off with some introductions. My name is Ann Curtis. I am a school design coach for Big Picture Learning, which I love. It's one of the best jobs ever, I'm just going to be honest. And some of my favorite people from Big Picture are with us today. So I started my career actually almost 20 years ago as a Big Picture teacher, as an advisor, and was a principal at a Big Picture school. Then was a Big Picture, or I left Big Picture, which was sad, but I got to go be a principal at another really fabulous school, and then made my way back to Big Picture as a school design coach. And I get to go to the various schools around Northern California, primarily that's where I'm located, and help people really kind of puzzle out how they want to transform their teaching and learning for students. And I just love it. When I got to come back to Big Picture, it really felt like coming home. So it's wonderful. And I feel really privileged to get to do this work and be here with everyone today. So while we're talking, also, if you want to kind of hop in the chat and answer kind of who you are, why you're here, and what comes to mind when you think about alternative schools, that'd be awesome. We'll try to call some of those out. I'll pass it over to Melanie. If you want to introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, of course. Hi, everyone. My name is Melanie Hall. I am an advisor at Confluence High School in Auburn, California. So we're in the foothills of the Sierra Nevadas. My entire class is here. You just can't see them. So they're just kind of they're waving. They're doing their thing while we're here with you guys today. And so some of them may choose to share as we go along. We'll just kind of play by ear and see how that works. I was the internship coordinator here for 2 years before I started as an advisor this year. I'm technically a career technical education advisor in the area of business, which I also get my advisory, which I'm just absolutely loving. Prior to that, I was in corporate America for about 10 years at some Fortune 500 companies. And prior to that, I was an officer in the United States Army. So I have a very diverse background, but I feel like all those experiences together have made me appreciate our kids even more and ways that I can help them. So I absolutely love it. And I feel like this is the place that my life's journey has led me to. And I'm really happy to be here and have this opportunity.
Hi, I'm Lauren Demrudis. If you hear a chainsaw in the background, my neighbors decided to chop down a tree. And if you hear any crying children, it's because we have 3. And the background, my background, by the way, is from my wife asked our oldest daughter, Lily, what advice she has for people during this time. And Lily said, almost immediately, do more art. So it's been kind of a theme for me. I have been connected with Big Pictures since 2005, when I left LA Unified as a teacher to see if I could do more. Had a lot of magic in the classroom in LA Unified, but lost too many students. So connected with Big Picture back in 2005 as part of a 3-month internship to get my principal certification, and 3 months has turned into a lifetime. And I'm connected with Big Picture because of the value alignment. That's what keeps me going, and our mission to activate the power of young people and communities. I want to really encourage folks, if you could, to focus, to introduce yourself via chat, but also to drop some words like what comes to mind when you think about alternative schools. And if you could have those, like what really comes to mind, right? What are some of the things, stereotypes you've heard, or things you've heard about alternative schools or who they serve? I know when I was growing up, I had some ideas about alternative schools that I have proven untrue. So we're going to, if you were in Javier's session this morning, he mentioned the Upstream Collaborative. And Javier, I definitely want to invite you to jump in as you see fit as well. In this session, we're going to talk a little bit about the Upstream Collaborative. kind of, and the flow is going to be around why we started this, and why we're partnering like this, what has happened, and then we're going to hopefully have a lot of time to breakouts where we can get into the how, and where we can engage with folks around how this could look in your community, or how you might be able to bring some of the lessons we've learned into serving your communities and young people. So taking a big step back for us, trying to switch two screens at the same time. I stole this from Javier. And really this is the, I think, driving why in our work. I remember when Javier called me 4 years ago with this kind of, I think, vision of serving young people in alternative schools. And alternative schools is kind of representative of the inequities that are in and around our schools and school communities. And one of the things that lighted up for me when Javier said that was just this idea that every district, right, has at least one alternative school. And what if we flipped the narrative in a way that alternative schools, instead of becoming the proverbial, dumping ground, is what I've heard how a lot of schools describe their schools, right? Like the history of their schools. So instead of being a dumping ground, or seen as a dumping ground for young people and adults, what if alternative schools were a place of thriving, of flourishing? What if the surrounding schools and communities were learning from alternative schools? And I want to pass it over to Anne. Anne said something about expectations for learning schools and how that's influenced our work, or what opportunities are in that.
Thanks, Lauren. And it will kind of lead into our next part too, about like what some of the outcomes we've been doing. But I think one of the things where we've been really successful as a collaborative and as a team is that we've really been talking about, the low, and what I see popping up in the chat, troubled students, low expectations, for the most part, and I'm generalizing here, I think everyone knows that, but where the alternative schools are where the lowest expectations live for students, and where the lowest quality of education is often delivered. They think, so we have, as a collaborative and as a group of coaches and instructional leaders, really intentionally exploited those low expectations, and I think that has led to a lot of success. So if the bar for students in an alternative setting is that they show up, that they don't get in fights, they turn in some sort of packet, and then you can give them a diploma at the end, right? Like if they give you some paper and they write their name on it, right? Like I've seen this and I've heard it described. So we just really worked that gap. And so when we really talk about what some of the powerful outcomes that we've seen in our work is just taking that and being like, all right, if that's the expectation, we can go so high with it, right? And we know the students in those schools are talented and brilliant. And like Lauren was saying, what we stole from Javier is, we're not into punishing students because their lives have been hard and education hasn't been kind to them and hasn't honored who they are as people. So we can take that and go so far with it because we know that the beautiful things that happen when you really shine a light on students and when you honor and value their experiences. So some of the outcomes that we've seen, really briefly, and we'll get more into details about how, but we started with just a handful of schools in the Upstream Collaborative, and we've grown over the last few years to over 40 schools. We're seeing these beautiful connections that come between students and their teachers and their principals, between the schools. People are really truly collaborating and joining in this conversation around what students can be like, and what learning can look like in alternative settings that really, like I said, values the students and where they're from, instead of continuing to just disenfranchise them from their education. We've seen huge growth in personalized instruction in the schools, people really fitting what the students are doing to the school experience versus the other way around, which is so typical in lots of schools, but especially in alternative spaces. The expectations have gone through the roof. It's for the students, that the students are holding themselves accountable to, not just that the adults are holding for the students, but that the students are like, I can do more, and I'm going to show you how I do that. And I'm bringing myself to the school in an authentic way because it's valued, because my teachers and my administrators and the people around me, the community, are doing the same thing, and I'm seeing that reflected in the work that I'm doing. And I hope we'll get to hear from Melanie's students to talk a little bit about that experience as well. Attendance has gone up, like all those kind of traditional indicators of success are also coming up. So, and we're seeing all of these beautiful things in graduation just because students are really being, I think, addressed and brought their education, they're bringing their education to us instead of the other way around. So Lauren, I'll pass that over to you next.
Well, I was going to actually pass it back to Melanie. Melanie, if you're willing to share some of the highlights. I know I didn't tell you I was going to show this picture, but there's so many stories here in this picture at graduation. But if you could share some of the highlights. Melanie has been a practitioner in this work. She's located at a school. Melanie's also been a coach practitioner, which we'll talk about more later. But Melanie has helped other schools in our network, and I think that's one of the innovations of the Upstream Collaborative is this coach practitioner idea. How do we do this with each other?
Yeah, thanks, Lauren. So I'm like, yeah, I didn't know that picture. That's myself, my first year that I was here with one of our students, Isaiah, who graduated 2 years ago, and I just want to highlight on him really quick. And his brother was here with him, and his sister is in my class right now. And this is a student who struggled immensely for multiple reasons, just the typical experience that a lot of our kids go through. They didn't really have the best home life, a lot of traumatic events that he went through kind of growing up. And I think what we do here most of anything beyond, like, the school part matters, but the care and concern and compassion for our students is really what makes the biggest difference. Because as we all know, if kids come to school and they don't feel like anyone cares about them, they're not getting enough sleep at home, they're not getting enough nutrition, like all the Pavlovian kind of aspects of that. If they're not feeling that, and if they're not feeling cared about, they're not going to learn anything, and they're definitely not going to come to school. So having that connection really makes a difference. And it might not be with me, it might be with another advisor, or even with another student, but some kind of connection of community, I think, is what's so key and vital to what we do. Isaiah was quiet. He would read his books. He would kind of stay in a corner, and then we developed a relationship, and he continued to blossom, and he was able to do projects in the areas that he was interested in. So his internship was at a local jewelry store here in town called Roper's. He did his project on how to become a jeweler. And the really cool, fascinating thing about Isaiah, I'm so proud of him, is he is still working at Roper's. They hired him on while he was still in school, and that's his job now. Like, he's working in the industry and working hard to gain the skills that he needs to do to progress. And obviously we couldn't do that without a supportive, like, overall community. Like, there's our community here at Confluence, but then there's the local community that we worked really hard to foster and build really great relationships of people who understand what we do here and that care about our kids and want to see our kids succeed. We've had, a lot of highlights that are great outcomes. Does that mean we've won every kid is out there doing amazing things? No, not necessarily. We've definitely had kids that we haven't been able to quite reach yet. But the really inspiring thing, and I remember Lauren telling me that my very first year, as I was getting frustrated of, hey, how do we help this kid? I'm not making a difference. Like, what else can I possibly do? And Lauren just reminding me that it might not be within this kid's generation, right? It might be within this kid's own kids that we're actually making a difference. But what we're doing is planting a seed in these kids' lives that hopefully, over time they will bloom and grow, but maybe it's not, but maybe they'll remember that. And when they have their own kids someday, that they're actually realizing, what we can do to break those cycles that these kids are growing up in. So, I mean, it definitely is, the wins are there, and you sometimes have to look because the days can be hard. Secondary trauma is a real thing that we encounter here on a daily basis. But just being able to have that vision of looking forward and remembering, you know, the Isaiahs, and I can name off, you know, 40 more kids off the top of my head that are out in the community, and I see them at the store, they're joining the Marines, and they're just excited about what they're doing. They're excited and confident in their future. And I can guarantee that if they'd stayed at the schools that they were at, that wouldn't have been the case or the circumstance.
When I think of some of the highlights for me, our first year, you know, when I was visiting some of these schools and seeing these different like packet-based approaches, right? Like these really complicated formulas around X number of worksheets equals Y number of credits, and you can spread these credits in different ways. And you know, a lot of people that we're working with would describe where they were as a diploma factory, as a worksheet factory. A lot of student data wasn't really collected. A lot of people were kind of pushed into the school, really low expectations for adults as well as young people. And I remember when I first was visiting many of the schools, I'd show up and I'd stand in the hallway. And in the beginning, it was almost like I was a picture on the wall. And like I wasn't there. And later on, I'd show up to these schools, even for the first time, and young people would ask me what I'm doing. And to me, that indicated this sense of belonging that had shifted from, you know, adults as not as people, and I think people kind of, young people in their own little bubbles of maybe trying to fit in or not get yelled at or not get made fun of, to this place of belonging where I show up, they don't know me, but they see me as a person, ask what I'm doing, and you can see that in the relationships that Melanie's talking about. I remember when Melanie visited a school as part of the coach practitioner work. This is another highlight for me. And Melanie sat in a classroom and just started engaging with students. And one of the teachers, they were early on in their journey. One of the teachers at the end of the day said to Melanie, "You learn more about my students in 5 minutes than I have in several months." And I think it was just because Melanie was there as a human with them. There's nothing magical to that, I think. I mean, Melanie's pretty magical, but it's just being there and being human. So those are some of the highlights. I mean, we've seen, like Anne was saying, increased attendance, one of the schools, the advisor was telling me that a majority of their students, a vast majority of their students, were in some sort of accepted to some sort of post-secondary education opportunity, college, community college, apprenticeships. He said that never happened before. I was like, "Is this normal?" And he's like, "It never happened before. We never had students going into these types of things, and now it's a norm." So this is kind of describing the what, and where we're going to go in a moment is into kind of the how. What were some major elements, and then we're going to get into breakouts where we can try to apply these. So if you're thinking, one of the things might be to think about it, like if you were to try to run with one of these things or amplify something you're doing, what are some questions you might have? We're going to get to that later, but just kind of priming the pump. We'll be in breakouts in a little bit. And I'll hand it back to Anne.
All right, so some key elements, and I'm going to go through these, like I said, a little bit quickly so that we can get into answering questions and digging in a little. Like we said, we wanted to make this time for you to really think about what in your own experience this is ringing true with, and how you can take that deeper look or that deeper dive into the work that you might already be doing or wanting to start. So we're looking at, there's multiple kind of prongs of this work, and it's lots of layers that have evolved over time. But one of the aspects that is the coaching, that the coaching team is really myself, Lauren, Javier, and Holly. We also had another colleague. We were doing some work with some Washington schools as well. But one of the things that we found to be really effective and that helped us get to the how is how we collaborated as coaches. So we created a real learning environment for ourselves where we can work together to troubleshoot, where we can be very intentional in the moves that we made with the schools, by supporting each other. So it's not a competition, right? Like whose school gets the best attendance rate or whose school stops using packets quickest and does exhibitions instead. You know, we really have this environment where we are fostering a community within ourselves so that we're constantly expanding our practices. We're really responsive. I think coaching, instead of having a set formula, we don't walk into the schools and say, here's what you have to do. Here's your binder. Now take your binder and put it on your shelf and do what you're going to do, right? Like that's what been a lot of times in my experience, what happens with binders, even really good binders and well-intentioned binders. But so we've really worked to personalize our own approach with the schools so that the schools can really set out, like, we're not trying to get every school to be a big picture school necessarily. We're trying to really think about how can you make this learning experience for your students equitable? How can it be transformative, and how can it be really student-centered and directed, and that looks different for a lot of different places. So we work really hard to be responsive to the needs of the schools and to be kind of that critical friend, those practitioners and partnerships. So those are some of the coaching moves that we make. And with the shift of COVID and going online, we're like, how do we move this, because now we can't go to the schools, right? The kids aren't there, the teachers are often not there. How can we support people the most? So we started some leadership cohorts, some advisor cohorts that were all virtual. So it's taking schools throughout the network. And we've done this all along, but really connecting the schools to each other so that they also have a network of support as they're navigating these really challenging and difficult times, but still wanting to move the needle for their students, still wanting to make their school a place that recognizes we're going through a pandemic, we're going through like racial injustice and lots of trauma. And how do we hold our students still up and accountable? But how do we do it in a way that's loving and honors the trauma they might be experiencing? And so we use switch to online everything to really continue to build our communities and support each other in that. So those are some of the coaching moves that we made. I think Lauren's going to talk a little bit more about that community that we built.
Yeah, and I think one more thing I'd add to the coaching is I feel like my role as a coach was to help schools revision or envision their best selves. And then I tried to hold that mirror up and help folks strategize the path to get there. And it wasn't for me about becoming a big picture school or anything. Is how could you serve these young people better? And what's your vision for that? One of the Anne and I were talking about like different categories of ways we supported schools or ways we were connected with schools or partnered. And the second one was like around, I think, collaborations. And Javier mentioned some of these this morning, but we had a series of micro-convenings, regional micro-convenings that were practice focused. So this picture on the slide deck is from a micro-convening at a school in Northern California where we focused on personalized learning plans. Everybody brought in examples of their learning plans. I think there were 8 schools there. And for a day and a half, we really wrestled with how could we serve students through our practices and structures related to learning plans. So it wasn't the kind of broad swath of topics that I've experienced in a lot of conferences. It was very practice focused on one particular element of our practice. Some of the other things we did with the coach practitioners, Melanie was supported in a couple different ways, but really to do the work with schools that Melanie was passionate about and folks were interested in. Melanie helped launch the internship program at Confluence. So a lot of schools that were, launching internship programs could reach out to Melanie as a resource, as somebody who's done it, who's in the field. We had 4 coach practitioners. And then this is less formal, but we really tried to facilitate as many inter-school connections as possible. I remember being at a school in the Northern Bay Area where the principal had just been told that there was some hangups around her approach to mentorships with the business department. And so I got her on the phone that day with, we had a conference call with 3 different principals who had navigated something similar, and they each presented different solutions or how it worked in their districts. And that day, she took one of their solutions to the board or to the district leadership and was able to get her internship program passed through. And so I think that's part of the beauty of this is the school to school. I loved it. I'd visit schools and I'd see on their calendars that somebody from another school was visiting, or when a school in a district leader and two administrators from Healdsburg visited Confluent in Auburn, California. And that helped kick things off because they could see it, right? And they could talk to people who are doing it. And I think that's been a really powerful element, is those inter school formal and informal partnerships. And I'll hand it back to Anne to talk about some of the community partnerships. Although Anne looks like she is off the call. That's one of the marvels of having to do this from an Applebee's parking lot. I don't know if y'all know that the rolling power outages in California right now with wind. So Anne was going to talk a little bit about some of the community partnerships, and Melanie could mention this earlier. So Melanie, maybe you could tag team, but Anne is back, I think. But a big part of this work has been around community partnerships. Anne, are you back with us? Well,
No. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, I put my mask on. I've got a couple students here near me. Say hi, guys. Hi.
Hey.
So, you know, the community partnership, and I did allude to it earlier, is absolutely vital to what we're able to accomplish and building that trust and respect. And the ways that we've done that is many ways, right? So we've done a couple things. One where we just take our kids on walks in our local community and area, and they get business cards, or they're bringing their resumes, or they're having relationships, or you're just having discussions with the kids as you're walking around of what that local business is, and is that something that they may be interested in as an internship possibility or a future career possibility. We find out what our kids, like, we dive really deep and try to work with them closely to figure out what it is that they want to do, what they think they want to do, right? Because that's two different things. They think they want to do something. We find them an internship. A good example I always use is like at a veterinary clinic. I've had a lot of gals think they want to be a vet tech. That's the only job they ever want to do. They go and they serve in that capacity as a vet tech in an internship, you know, as close as they can to it. And they realize that is not at all what they want to do. And it was a terrible experience, and how much now they're going like in a 180-degree direction. So being able to take a student and put them into a veterinary clinic or some of these environments that are, you know, a little bit more on the sensitive side, you can say, because it is someone's business, it is someone's profession, and they're allowing our students to go in and giving them that 100% opportunity. You know, and sometimes our students aren't perfect when they're there, or they don't always show up when they should, and they're not following all the rules because, you know, they haven't been kind of shown that example in life, and we try to do that with them too. So that is one example where just because we have that relationship, we can put a student basically in any area of interest that we have, if we have that capacity for that business within our community. With the online world now too, I mean, our kids can connect with anyone in any profession, anywhere, at any time, right? So, but just continuing to foster those relationships, have those conversations. I've done a lot of presenting at local Rotary meetings or the Elks Club or different lodges, professional business communities, to explain what we do. And as soon as I go in and I take the time to explain what our program is all about, instantly, I always have people at the end of the meeting handing me business cards saying, I really want to be a part of this. I see what you're doing, and I was that kid. And I wish that there was someone there that could have helped me in the way that you're helping these kids. So that, Lauren, does that kind of answer what you're looking for?
Yeah, and I think Anne is back, and looks like Anne's back. And another type, so we've got the kind of partnerships in terms of, there's this great picture, I've seen several of them from Confluence, the students holding up signs in organizations outside of school saying, this is my classroom, right? When Isaiah at the jewelry store, like, that was his classroom. And for me, it's even beyond the, like, what do you want to do or what do you think you want to do? It's like, what are you curious about? What do you want to learn more about? And how can we connect you with people that share some of those interests or curiosities? And then another type of partnership that Anne will talk about before we go into breakout rooms is it's Native Student Alliance that we've been able to help facilitate at schools through the work of Holly.
Sorry, my my power was turned out by PG&E, and so internet is funny. I am currently in my car in front of Applebee's. I wasn't going to tell you all this, but that's why I apologize for the background if I do disappear again on you, which it looks like I might already be doing. But the Native Student Alliance is really some great work that is again about honoring students. Like, we look at the demographics of students, and Native students are often really overrepresented and represented in alternative ed. So Holly has really worked through this to bring their traditional ways of being and being honored and community into the schools and have that become a part of the practices that are there. And this is work, I think, as we move forward, that we're looking to expand that type of like really strong community connection. Like, what is the systems around the school that can really become a real strong ecosystem within it, like that healthy, thriving ecosystem of a school where a lot of people are active, so that the walls are not up, that the doors aren't closed to the classroom, that the teachers are not they're alongside the community partners, the parents, the students, that it's like a continuum of people working together to support students instead of one person standing in front talking about how to learn best. And I think that it's really some powerful work that recognizes students feelings and about in their community, and that brings their community into the school. So again, it just breaks down the walls. So I think that's work that we're really trying to move forward to doing.
So even though we have small numbers, I think we're going to go into breakouts now. And what I think have the opportunity to do is to name a few different breakout rooms where folks want to go. So I'm going to stop my screen share. But before we get into breakout rooms, if you could think about those questions, like based on what you heard, what are you curious about, based on your context or where you are in your journey, where might you focus? Maybe it's where might you start? Maybe it's what might you amplify, initiate. What might you want to improve? And then we're going to try to have the breakout room centered around these questions. So folks could drop some questions into the chat. I'm gonna get the breakout room set up if I can figure it out.
And like Lauren was saying, as he does that, thank you for doing the breakout rooms for us, Lauren. We're really want to have you get the opportunity to really think about your own context and your own practices and what you might like to know if you or ask about or dig in, so that you can think about moving your own work forward for your students, because we know there's a lot of you already doing this in your context, or looking at where you can do it more deeply within your district or your own classroom. So we want to give you a chance to talk to each other and really dig in a little bit and have a deeper conversation.
So I've got the breakout room set up. If you want to, or if your question or focus area is around students and hearing from student experience and practitioner experience, I messed up. I had to do 2 rounds of breakout rooms. So you'll be in breakout room number 5. As you hear the topic you want, if you could put your name and the breakout room number, I'll put you in there. If you want to hear from Javier on a leadership perspective of launching this collaborative and what it means to get this kind of thing started and forming the partnerships with districts and foundations, that'll be breakout room number 6, which is the big leadership. In number 7 will be Anne around coaching. And I will stay in the lobby to work with folks, either to get you into breakout rooms or to have a conversation in here. So great. HD Web into room number 6. Thank you. I'm going to open all rooms. Room number 6. Jan. Hey, Jan. Number 6. Cindy, number 7. Hi, Cindy. Mary, number 6. So if anybody missed that, we're trying to decide on breakout rooms. In breakout room number 5, Melanie, current practitioner with students. In breakout room number 6, Javier. Javier, did you get the invite to your breakout room? around how do you form partnerships with either foundation or district leadership to get this kind of thing started.
Great. Gotcha.
Tara wants to be in 7. Steve 5. Room 7. Nice. Sandy, hi. Where would you like to go?
Well, I said 7.
Oh, sorry.
But so torn between 6 and 7. I really don't know a lot about. I mean, I'm at an alternative campus. So much of this speaks to me,
Mhm.
and I said 7 for coaching. So let's go there, I guess. I was between that and Javier.
If you, well, one thing we're sharing all our email addresses. So, like, wild success for us is that somebody reaches out and wants to have more conversation. So there's that.
Okay.
What's one question that's curious? Maybe I could help you, unless that's where you want to go for sure.
I'm curious. So we're an independent school district. We are the only alternative center for this district. We're in Texas. So is this something that is, I mean, relevant to like the coordination between the districts, if you will, and getting a collaborative group? Or could I be a part of some other group elsewhere to just keep building on this? Because everything you're doing, what I'm interested right now is like student surveys of interest and more hands-on learning for the kids. We're developing rapport and changing what the idea of this is. I just don't know.
So oh, now I'm getting an echo. I'm sorry. Do you mind if I put you on mute real quick, Sandy?
Sure, go ahead.
How about it's your call on which room, but I will say what I heard you ask is is this something you could join? Is this something you could start? Did I hear that right? In Texas, I think it's a yes, right? to either. I would love to, and very seriously offering this. I would love to have a conversation with you if you want around like what this has looked like and get more in depth into that, and also to connect you with some folks. So I think you could do both. Connect with some of the leaders, and there's this school I'm working with in Fort Bragg, California tomorrow, right? And they just launched this, just connected with amidst all this funky time. And I think it would be a great connection for you to talk with Connie, the principal there, and hear like they're having, by all accounts, families, students, staff, the most successful year they've had, despite all this, everything, right? More engagement, higher attendance by far. So that kind of thing. And I think you could answer the question later about, is this something you want to start? Is this something you want to join, or, but if that works for you. It looked like an affirmative. You're on mute still. Okay, yeah. So which room would make the most sense for you?
Let's just go to 6 for now.
6. All right.
Thank you.
Yeah. Hi, Ruth. Ruth, I don't know if you have audio or you can chat. We're in breakout rooms right now. Hi.
Are we in a breakout room now? I actually was in another one and I was trying to get to both. So
yeah, where would you like to go?
I had a phone call in between. So if you could just get me up to speed here, what am I?
There's right now were you here with us earlier?
No.
Okay. So we've been talking about this thing, Upstream Collaborative, collection of, it started as 11 alternative schools. It's now 40 plus. And not here to, it's not like invite people or not into Upstream. That's not what this is about, but it's like, what's happened, right? And we've seen this just go through it super fast, like wild success in terms of student outcomes, higher engagement, higher attendance, like greater sense of belonging. A lot of great stuff. And then we talked about what we did to make this happen. And I think that's the
Okay.
the key feature here is we had a lot of inter-school collaborations, a lot of professional development, some that was site-based coaching. A lot of it was these things like micro-convenings, where we brought folks together around one problem practice for a day and a half. Like the example I gave earlier was around learning plans and personalized learning plans. And so for a day and a half, we wrestled just on that one problem of practice. And then there are other examples of formal and informal collaborations. I think one other kind of innovative practice is we identified and supported 4 coach practitioners in this collaborative of Upstream of alternative schools, where they were supported to coach other schools. So Melanie, one of the co-presenters here, was an internship coordinator at a school in California. Because she had launched a program in a community that never had one, she was a really valuable asset, I think, to other schools that were trying to launch internship programs as well. And so there's a lot of those types of things. And right now we're in breakout rooms where one, it has Melanie and students, where they can talk about what their experiences have been in a school, in and around a school. Another one is Javier, who kind of launched this whole thing. So I think he's helping folks think about how could you launch something like this in your context, and what do partnerships look like. And then Anne is one of the coaches like me, who is in the third breakout room, talking about like what are some of the coaching moves, or how do we bring people together, how do we get people to like shift mindsets and practices over this 3-year period, if that makes sense.
Yes, thank you so much for bringing me up to speed. I think one of the things I say that resonated, and I think it resonated in the title, was the PD for personalized learning, not necessarily for the a little bit for the students, but part of what we're going to be doing with our one of our programs with the Center for Collaborative Education is we work a lot with mentors who will be mentoring potential teacher candidates, mentors who will be mentoring in the classroom these teacher candidates who may come in and observe. And so that was what caught my eye with regard to what strategies, especially not only now, but even previously, and then even looking towards the future, especially in the high need schools, could be successful in professional development as we coach mentors to support incoming teachers or incoming potential teachers, as well as what can we do to support some of our community college students who are potentially going to be incoming teachers. So that's the kind of thing that resonated. And I heard that you said something about coaching and practitioners. So I don't know if that's relevant.
Yeah, let me make sure I'm hearing you right. Question around, you have so I heard like 2 things there, right? The folks who are mentoring new teachers and these teachers, are these teachers in like in a placement already?
So we're just launching. We just got a new grant, so we're just launching part of the program. So I'm just trying to front load myself with some strategies. And so in the past, we've been out there in the classrooms helping the mentors who will be paired with teacher candidates, for lack of a better word.
Sure.
And how can we now in this virtual environment moving forward support potential mentors, because they're teaching in their classrooms virtually, and how do we help them say to their mentee, if you will, or teacher candidate, here's what you can do while we're doing this online. Like how do we support that? How do we support a virtual coaching environment?
Yeah,
does that make sense? Did I clarify it?
Yeah, that's fantastic. And the second one was around more, it sounded like our outreach or getting folks who are in community colleges interested or positioned.
Well, that's part of what we already are working on that, but part of it is how do we also support those potential incoming community college students to feel useful when they're doing their classroom observations or with the mentors. So sort of it kind of is that personalized learning that we talk about. Like I have a mentor who really wants me to help out and I don't know what to do, and navigating that space. Like how do we support them both in that partnership?
Yeah, that's great. Well, the breakout room, I think that would make the most sense would be with Anne, the coach. I think the closest parallel, so we don't have, so that coach practitioner piece I mentioned, those are, I think, the closest parallel we have to a mentor, but it's not, they're not assigned to, one person in particular, but they're available as a resource.
Sure.
As a coach,
and that could
yeah.
support us as our organization, as our team. Like how do we as coaches enter into that dynamic?
Right, that's great. So I think, that even makes more sense, I think, to put in the coaching space. And so we've had to, as coaches, we've had to essentially, in some ways, mentor entire staff, right? Around,
Exactly.
right?
Yes.
And so entering into that, when you said entering into that partnership, it like all sorts of stuff lit up in my brain, right? Like what have we learned about, or what are we learning about entering those partnerships? We create a lot of school learning plans, right? With new schools. So how do we establish a vision or guiding values, right? How do you want to be as a school community 10 years from now? What distinguishes the work? And then what are the goals you have to support that? And then what like kind of bringing it down to ground level, what are the practices or things we could develop or work on to support those goals and to support that vision? I think that's kind of has been our coaching flow, and it's, what are we learning about that right now? It's so real time, right? But if you want, I can put you into Anne's room. We only have like 10 minutes left, but I'd also offer, if you're interested in more conversation, we're sharing all of our emails, and wild success for us is that from this session is that at least one person reaches out to have more conversation about this. So if you're interested in more conversation, or there's something you'd like to see more examples of, please do reach out. I mean, that would be,
Certainly.
that's why we're here.
I mean, right. And I definitely appreciate that. I think any information that we can, what I think about right now is sort of, as we enter into this, we're going to be launching soon, is what can I front load myself with? So I have a bag of tricks. Like as a seasoned educator, I was always reaching to my old school bag of tricks and realizing a lot of that, while applicable needs to pivot. And how do I pivot?
Right.
Not necessarily I as myself, but how do I pivot that so I can support my team, and then also the partners that we work with, because we work with a consortium of 3 community colleges. So they may come with one need, one college may come with one need, and another college may come with another need. And so when you talk about practices can always be tweaked and modified, and to say, hey, this is what I heard at the Aurora Institute at a breakout session. We could try it. How could we pivot it to work with our particular group? Yeah. So if it makes sense, I'm just willing to sit in for the next 10 minutes and hear what a coach did, how they were successful. That would be great.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, Lauren. I really appreciate it.
Likewise. And there you go. Natalie, I'm going to pop into the breakout rooms, if that's okay. Leave you out here by yourself.
Yeah, that's totally fine. I was just going to say, I'm happy to kind of ping you or something if someone else jumps in and they want to jump into a breakout room, because I think you have to be the one to do it, but I'll let you know. Yeah.
I'll monitor too to see if anybody else shows up.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Sounds
Thanks.
good. Yep.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi there.
Hi.
I'm just popping in to see if I had others joining your session here.
Yeah, we
you
are.
over?
No, we're in breakout rooms.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. Would you like to join one?
Sure.
There are 3. One is with a current practitioner and her students in Auburn, California.
Okay.
Oh, you want to join that one?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay. Stay still. It's Enrique.
How's he doing?
Enrique is doing great. He is not here today because he is at his internship / job. So he's working at Old Town Pizza, doing amazing. So he's mine this year. Yay. I'm happy to have him. Yes, we'll get you that. So that was fun. We had a nice breakout session.
Great. I think the rest are wrapping up right now.
Perfect. My class is getting loud. I think they've been restless because I've been doing this for an hour and being so good.
Really appreciate it.
Thanks, Melanie. Sorry, Cindy. Bye, Melanie.
So I wanted to share our 2 quick things. I wanted to share our contact info. When we were talking about wild success, one of the indicator of wild success for us would be that somebody reaches out with an idea or looking for a connection. Would love to connect you with folks, and I think that's how we've built this, is through those connections and learning with each other. So there's our contact info. Javier's is Javier, if you're willing to share yours too, since I'd appreciate that. And I know that we have we're supposed to cue you to a survey. I don't know if Natalie wants to say anything about it, but I know it's how we continue to make these types of things better. So I would appreciate it if folks could do that.
It's in the chat. There's a link in there also that Natalie put up. Thank you, Natalie.
Very cool.
Thank you.
Well, thanks, y'all.
Yeah, thank you all for your time. We know it's super valuable and you're really busy. Like just a bit, you got a busy life right now. Well, always, but especially now. So thank you for spending part of your day with us today.